What's up, Dub Nation? And this is Rich with Let's Go Warriors, right back here with you. I wanted to do this video ever since the Markkanen deal did not go through. And of course, it's with our buddy Andrew Wiggins. So the thesis of this video is really just to say that Andrew Wiggins is the fulcrum of all roster moves, sort of. He's a central piece. And before we get into that, we have to pay our respects because, as it turns out, his dad, Mitchell Wiggins, recently passed away. Now, in 2022-23 that Wiggins, Andrew, had to take a leave of absence for personal reasons. We didn't find out until later that his dad was in poor health, and then he took another personal leave of absence sometime in mid or so 23-24, which was last season. So condolences. We do have some information here. I'll put links in the description per usual, but this is the funeral announcement that came out. Shout out to Ruckus, who is a community member with our Let's Go Warriors YouTube channel. And he pointed me to this. And then there's also some obituaries. And the only one I found that was sort of more informational than usual was that Mitchell Wiggins was, quote, such an asset to Lifetime. Sounds like probably Lifetime Fitness, which I've actually attended in Minneapolis. Seems like Mitchell Wiggins probably worked there or something. And I find that interesting because I didn't know this, but his dad apparently lived in Minneapolis or near Minneapolis, close to Andrew. His brother, Nick Wiggins, posted that particular highlight reel of Mitchell Wiggins, who played in the NBA Finals against the Celtics. They lost to the Celtics way back when. Now, here at Let's Go Warriors, if you go to our YouTube homepage and click on videos, the last time I talked about the Markkanen deal was back 2 months ago when things were getting hot. And back then it was more, yeah, we would really want Lauri Markkanen. He fits well. How do we fit him in? And if we fit him in, we're going to have to pay him $34 million, because then you would want to extend him after that and get him the 40 plus million, which he did get from Utah, as we know by now. Now, we got a lot of information from the Monty Show. They are a Utah-based podcast and a former radio show. And here is one of their videos. So we got a lot of information from them. And this kind of dovetails into, again, my thesis for this video, which is that Wiggins is the fulcrum of major roster moves. The whole narrative of we need to get Steph help and all of that complaining that becomes narratives on social media apps like Twitter. Well, that is really based on the salary cap situation, though. And it's hard to find Steph a number 2 running mate at the level of Lauri Markkanen because of the Wiggins contract. So shout out to Monty Show. Here's a DM that I exchanged with him. I said, don't you think that the Wiggins contract, it was the major stumbling block? Because first of all, Utah, and I never really got a chance to say this in all of the Markkanen reporting that was in video form on our YouTube channel. I did say this many times in our live streams, so I encourage you to catch our live streams every now and then. Just did a Caitlin watch party a few hours ago. The thing with the Wiggins contract during the Markkanen talks was that he was going to go to another team, a third team, in exchange for some draft picks, maybe one draft pick. And based on the look and feel of how the negotiations kind of went from the rumors of the Utah Jazz wanting Podziemski after the discussion was made about Kuminga, and they probably didn't want Kuminga's contract because he's up for an extension, which we will talk about later in this video. Here we're talking about the Wiggins contract being indeed a big hurdle, but then after that hurdle, this is Jake of the Monty Show basically saying that, well, there was more rumors of Podziemski and Lake of not wanting to part with Podziemski. But the first domino to fall was the Wiggins contract. And I have a feeling that they just couldn't get a first round pick for the Warriors. The Warriors could not shop Wiggins around. Remember, it was a big deal because Wiggins was strongly asked by the Warriors to not attend Team Canada, and therefore Wiggins did not get to play in the Olympics. But you can imagine how Mike Dunleavy would not want to risk an injury to Wiggins so that he can still be tradable. As it turns out, my theory is that Dunleavy didn't know, but then figured out that Wiggins's contract wasn't worth much. Now, how do we know this? Well, first of all, I keep harping on this on every live stream, and I probably should harp on this on every recorded video that I post. But you don't want to be stuck as a casual fan just complaining about the Warriors being unable to get a quality number 2 alongside Steph Curry. The reason for that is because you're paying Steph the highest salary, if not nearly the highest salary in the NBA for years upon years. Wiggins is making 26 million. Klay Thompson was making 43 million before this last year. So that was a bit of an albatross deal after coming back from the injury. I mean, that's not Klay's fault. And the Warriors still owe Wiggins 28 million next year and 30 million the following year, assuming Wiggins opts in on that. The other big contract is Draymond Green, obviously. In the words of Luke Walton not too long ago as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings, Luke Walton's words were Draymond and Steph are a shared brain. So you can't really split up Draymond and Steph. Now, there's an argument that can be made such that if Draymond were to get suspended again for antics on the court, then he becomes a liability. Then he becomes quote unquote tradable. And in fact, I'm sure LeBron would always love to play with Draymond. So he'll always have a landing spot wherever LeBron is. But for all intents and purposes, if Draymond is playing like Draymond should be playing, then you don't split up the shared brain of Steph and Draymond, which basically makes it permanent that you're going to spend what, 85 to 90 million on Steph and Draymond alone. That is a big, big chunk of your salary cap table, not to mention Andrew Wiggins in the high 20s. If you were to simply go click on other teams here, for the sake of argument, let's go to New Orleans. I literally got a DM yesterday of someone saying, what do you think about Zion? What do you think about Brandon Ingram? Well, here's the problem. Brandon Ingram is making 36 million. Zion Williamson is making 37 million and is due 40, 42, and 44 after that. You have to make the salaries match and add up. So if they're trading Brandon Ingram, it would be for Andrew Wiggins. All signs point to Andrew Wiggins because there is no other big contract to move to get a guy like Brandon Ingram, a guy like Zion Williamson. Let's say the only reason the Pelicans would ever move off of Zion is if he remains an injured type player. And at that point, would you want a chronically injured guy, even of Zion's ceiling? I don't know. That's a huge risk, right? We're playing a little bit of the what if game. But again, I'm back to the fact that Andrew Wiggins has to be the contract that is involved in any trade because you're practically speaking not trading Draymond or Steph, and the two of them account for 80 to 90 million dollars alone. And that gets back to understanding these salary cap tables. Now, the thing I love about Hoops Hype, and of course I'll have some links in the description, but Hoops Hype gives you multiple years on one web page. The other resource that is of tremendous help is capsheets.com, which is written by Yossi Goslin. If we go here and click on the Warriors, you will see what the salary cap sheet breakdown is for the current year. And this is important also to know because you do need to drill down every year. And of course, I'm getting a little bit into salary cap sheets 101 rather than Wiggins here, but here you can clearly see that the Warriors are hard capped at the first apron. There's only 533,000 left, which helps you understand why Quinten Post was signed on a two-way, and then also Daeqwon Plowden was waived. And then having some current news in this video for you, Kevin Knox apparently was a guy that they were ready to sign. And in my mind, that's kind of a replacement for the loss of Plowden. And so understanding that these all have salary cap sheet ramifications really helps you have a little bit of science, have a little bit of math behind your reasoning, so that you're not just on Twitter complaining about everything every minute. Like, who wants to be the casual fan that doesn't understand how things work? There is a science behind all of this. The other resource that you need to have in your arsenal, and I'm not a gatekeeper here, right? I'm here to just tell you what you need to do to be a better NBA fan, to better understand everything. And we'll get into that in one more minute. But spottrack.com. Now, here is where you can learn things about when Looney's option for turning his salary into a guaranteed deal was set for. What was the date on that? I'm not going to click on anything and go into a rabbit hole here with you guys, but this is also where we kind of confirmed that Lauri Markkanen had sort of this window that he needed to be signed by Utah, and that's why the rumors started flaring that particular time of the offseason. Now, the other thing I've done is I've made it easy for you, because on our website here, letsgowarriors.com, I've literally copied the table from Hoops Hype and capshoots.com. So if you're a little hesitant to remember those things, here's an easy way to remember this. Just go to our website and I have it there for you. Now, this means I'm going to have to update it every time these guys update it, but it's just 2 screenshots to keep track of. Moving on, Lonnie Walker cannot get more than a training camp invite with the Boston Celtics. So Keith Smith is lamenting, we've either gone too far with things in the CBA or teams are being far too cautious. Keith Smith, we've had him on our live stream before. He's one of the few guys that's mentioning these things where you've got to understand that it's harder and harder for guys to get contracts, which then leads to more and more scrutiny on Andrew Wiggins making $26 million this year, right? We want to talk about Kuminga. Andrew Wiggins needs to be playing at a value that is closer to $26 million. To do that, my main hot take today is that he needs to be a starter. Wiggins coming off the bench will only keep it at the kind of low situation that it's in right now. So Andrew Wiggins, in my opinion, must be a starter. That affects Kuminga possibly. Now, we can talk about what the starting lineups might be, what the rotations might be. That's kind of outside the scope of this video and really has a lot of possibilities because we've got a very dynamic roster. But Kuminga says here, when asked directly, what if he doesn't break into the starting lineup? And this is an article by Tim Kawakami. He's not thinking about starting right now. The goal is me being a full starter. Well, obviously, because all young bucks, they want to be a starter and all of that. But if he doesn't start, I wouldn't be surprised. I would just have a talk with him and say, don't worry, we're looking at you to have a big extension and we want you to be on the team, as Joe Lacob has said before or has alluded to in podcasts with Tim Kawakami. I mean, to me, Kuminga is an out of this world athlete that is very hard to obtain. So when you've got a guy that can jump out of the building like that and has a lot of skill and developing understanding of the game, increasing his IQ, that guy's a keeper. Go ahead and pay him. Okay. That's my opinion on that. But that doesn't mean that I really, really need Kuminga to start. Now, to win games, yes. But then if Wiggins is not playing at more than $20 million, hopefully $26 million. If he's not playing up to his value by the trade deadline in February, then that limits the Warriors' optionality. And again, they're going to have trouble making a deal. Speaking of Kuminga and his extension, Anthony Slater, great article earlier on, about a month ago. Basically, it says here that it's going to be really hard to trade Kuminga if you gave him an extension, because when you trade him to match the salaries, it becomes an average of what his extension is versus what it is now. Now, some estimates have Kuminga at 30 million a year, let's say. Well, he's only making 7 million right now on that rookie contract. So then you'd have to average that out. And it just makes the whole trade situation of Kuminga more difficult to give him an extension right now. So if anybody is complaining about not extending Kuminga, again, the math tells us that it's just not the right time to do it. I'd rather pay him a bunch of money if I'm Joe Lacob, a bunch of money after the season for next season and onward than right now, which will limit our optionality in terms of potential trades. Here's me. It's a screenshot of me telling the world, or everybody that was on our Caitlin Game 1 live stream, this particular thesis, which is I think Wiggins has to start. And Shivansh, one of our loyal commenters, says Wiggs at the 2 gives him a matchup advantage, and he shot league average from 3, and I don't think he'll be that cold this year. Also, starting role will help boost his trade value. Interestingly enough, Yahoo just released a ranking of the NBA's number 2 options. Guess where Wiggins was? Ironically, take a guess. He was his uniform number. Now, you know me. I don't like rankings. In fact, I don't like what I call crap. CRAP. C stands for comparisons. R stands for rankings, which this is. A stands for awards. And P stands for predictions. I don't really like to do crap. And I hope that you start to think about feeling the same way, because what makes this sport so fun and what makes it more joyful is not predicting things, not comparing people, not ranking people, and not worrying about who gets what awards, because I've spent so much time in the locker room at Oracle. The guys, they don't care about that stuff. And anytime you ask a comparison question or a ranking question, it's an unwritten rule. NBA locker rooms, they kind of look at you and they don't really tell you much, because if they compare themselves to another player, they're liable to throw that other guy under the bus. If they rank themselves, they're liable to throw teammates or other NBA players or coaches or trainers, whomever. They're liable to throw them under the bus inadvertently, maybe even by accident. So they avoid it altogether. Now, if we're going to embody what the Warriors go through in that locker room, to have the joy that Steph has, to have the gratitude that Steph has, and exude that throughout as the actual Warriors culture, because you can't tell me that Steph isn't the Warriors. Steph is the Warriors. So we should embody how Steph does it. Now, Steph was born into an NBA world where he got to shoot around with Muggsy Bogues and Vince Carter at age 7, or possibly even earlier than that. That gets ingrained into his brain. That gets entrained and programmed. He innately has the joy. We all have our different upbringings. We didn't necessarily have the privilege that Steph did, so it's kind of harder for us to relate. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm here to remind you of that. And that's what we're doing at Let's Go Warriors. That's literally how we want to change the way that we follow this team. Moving on, that gets right into having compassion for Andrew Wiggins. There has been a lot of throwing Andrew Wiggins under the bus the last 2 years. It's understandable, though, because when it comes down to it, a lot of people are judgmental based on your performance on the court. That is the life of the NBA superstar who makes millions. And they've come to accept it. But I don't want to just judge and judge and judge on this channel, right? I would like us to be more human. I've actually changed the bio on our About page on this YouTube channel to reflect that. So shout out to Andrew, Nick, his brother, I forget his name, and of course, RIP Mitchell Wiggins. And let's be reminded that Andrew went through a lot the last 2 years. I know that me saying his contract value is really deflated right now is almost throwing him under the bus. But the truth of the matter is, the Warriors can't really improve from a roster standpoint with a big name without Wiggins' contract living up to its value. So it's kind of ironic that we need Andrew Wiggins to play better, to play more at his contract value, which certainly he would want to do just from the love of the game aspect. But that also makes him more tradable. So it's very ironic, but it is what it is. And I'm also here to tell you when things are what they are. And let's not forget, if Wiggins were to be traded at any point in time, I mean, we owe him a debt of gratitude for the way that he played against the Celtics. Just have a little moment of appreciation for him. Again, I feel like we need to do that more as fans, and that's what Let's Go Warriors is here to do. So speaking of which, I changed our bio. Let's Go Warriors is for those in Dub Nation with the biggest hearts. We'll always focus on behind the scenes stuff, because that is how you gain the human connection. If you're just analyzing the results all the time, you're not really getting those human connections, which kind of prevent you or make it more difficult for you to have gratitude for the Warriors. For Steph Curry, I've been a seasoned credentialed video journalist and a beat writer since 2013. Possibly even longer than that, but that's when Let's Go Warriors was officially founded, when I went on the 2013 China trip. What did I do? Covered every practice, every morning shoot around, every pregame, every game, every postgame in the interview room, and of course, every off season. Remember China Klay? And so, this video kind of started out as preaching that Wiggins' contract is the fulcrum for the direction of the Warriors. I mean, I guess there's a scenario where Wiggins is diminished greatly and Kuminga's, a borderline all-star, and DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, whoever are playing their butts off, and Wiggins is getting lost in the shuffle. That's not really going to help us improve the roster, though. It really falls on Wiggins' contract, which depends on Wiggins playing better. So best wishes to you, Andrew. I know that it's sort of messed up that if he plays better, he becomes more of a trade chip at that point. Wiggins improving to the point where he's playing like a $26 million player again. I can't think of a single person that wouldn't want that. So that's what I'm here to preach. But I'm also here to preach gratitude for the same guy, Andrew Wiggins. And with that, let's do our traditional, customary Just Us outro. And of course, Brate. Now, I do have a couple more announcements to make. We are going live Monday, September 28th. I think the start time will be around noon. Whenever they start Media Day, that's when we're going live. I will not be on the scene, but we will have people chiming in who are on the scene, and we might have a few guests as well join the live stream. I can't wait for that. Believe it or not, the Warriors season is literally going to start in 4 short days. And I also want to take a moment to promote our website, which will also include our new Discord server. Now, the Discord server is a special one. I'm going to give you a peek right here. If you sign up to our website at Let's Go Warriors, the paid subscription, which is only $5 a month, you will get access to these channels. Every single post that I make, little bonus on women's basketball, which is for the time being called Let's Go Valkyries. And you can see here that I've got a few behind the scenes videos already from the Caitlin Clark game tonight. So that will continue to go when the Valkyries start playing in April. Furthermore, everything is divided up into each of the player names and more. It goes all the way down to two-way players, G League, Mike Dunleavy, and team management, training camp, free agency, the draft. This is different. This is really providing you resources sliced and diced in many different ways. Now, there are a couple more feeds here. Now, these are for VIPs. And by VIPs, there's a way on letsgowarriors.com to be a founding member as Substack, the platform that letsgowarriors.com is on, describes it. So if you're a founding member, and I think that's only $99 a year, which if you divide by 12 is only like $8.50 per month. So if you're a founding member at $99 a year, you get access to these feeds. One of them is a raw NBA feed, and the other one is a Warriors feed. And these feeds are one of a kind out there. So I wanted to take some time to promote that stuff. But again, I will see you guys on Monday. For those of you in Dub Nation with the biggest hearts, see you on Monday. Appreciate you all. Take care.